Good morning, Internet, and welcome to the Master List of Logical Fallacies being read by Alan Muliger and commentary with Alan Muliger and Bryce Barnett. And today we are covering availability bias. But before we dive in, Alan just hopped on. And how's your day going? You said you were talking with your dad?
Yeah, I was just chatting with him, catching up, getting ready for birthdays this year. This year's my 30th, so they want to come down to Austin for it, which is always a good time. Just got done with the 14-day juice fast, so that was fun. This is my second time eating solid food in 14 days. That gets me excited. But yeah, so excited to hop into the fallacies.
Hell yeah. Are we in a authentic mindset? Do we need to get there? Do we need to meditate?
No, I feel good. The Just asking the question and prompting it is good. Do the thing. You said it was availability bias, yes?
Yeah, 22.
Number 22. How many of these are there again? 108?
I think it's like close to 150 something.
Let's see. 146. Oh man, we got a lot to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 22 is availability bias, also attention bias and anchoring bias. Ooh, these are two, attention and anchoring. I don't know what those are in terms of the biases, but in my line of work, holding attention and anchoring things is very necessary. So curious about those two. Availability bias, a fallacy of logos stemming from the natural tendency to give undue attention and importance to information that is immediately available at hand, particularly the first or last information received, and to minimize or ignore broader data or wider evidence that clearly exists but is not as easily remembered or accessed. Okay. Quote, as an example, we know from experience that this doesn't work when, quote, experience means the most recent local attempt, ignoring overwhelming experience from other places and times where it has worked and does work. Also related is the fallacy of hyperbole, also magnification or sometimes catastrophizing, where an immediate instance is immediately proclaimed, quote, the most significant in all of human history, oh man, or the quote, worst in the whole world. This latter fallacy works extremely well with less educated audiences and those whose quote, whole world is very small indeed, audiences who quote, hate history and whose historical memory spans several weeks at best. Availability bias.
Damn.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say on this one, but curious what stands out to you.
Yeah, to me it's I think it did a really good job at the very end there, saying people's historical memory spans weeks at best. Um
Thought that was funny.
yeah, I think this is like yeah, it's tough. I think like this one to me it seems to relate a lot to just our like a desire to trust what's being told to us or what's being said. It's like, well, if this person's saying it, like I want to trust this person because they're speaking or they're talking or whatever. Um,
Oh,
and
really
so,
quick, Alan, just to be fair, that is technically a different fallacy altogether. I believe it's
oh,
yeah, it's
nice.
oh God. It's argument from authority is the name of that bias. So availability bias. You know, I'll give two examples. Um, there's a good one, there's a bad one. I'm gonna do the bad one first. So the bad example is when I was in a cult. Everyone that was there may not have said these words exactly, but it was definitely felt, or I think some people did say it, like just kind of like look around at how many people are successful that we have here right now. And like
Mhm.
it must be that that this place is so amazing, and
Hmm.
deliberately ignoring the 99% of people that attempted to go through the program and didn't make it at like a conference or something. That
Yeah.
is availability bias. When everything that's left over is success, you are ignoring how it was unsuccessful for everybody else.
Got it. Hmm.
So that's a big one that the cult that I was in really leeches onto. Um, Another one is actually a fun scientific example. For a while, um, when scientists were trying to figure out how many stars had planets, we could tell that a star had one if the star wobbled, because Jupiter, for example, has so much gravity that it pulls on the sun as well. And so the sun wobbles because of something massive like Jupiter. And so we were able to discover so many stars had giant Jupiter-sized planets around them. And we're like, wow, almost all the planets in the universe are massive. And then later it eventually clicked like, no, wait, we're only looking for giant planets. We're missing all the small ones.
Hmm.
And that was availability bias for a while, that we just thought, isn't Earth so special that it's a rocky planet? And it's like, no, we're just not looking for those because we don't have the tech strong enough to see that. We can only see the massive planets.
Hmm. Got that.
So at least scientists were able to recognize their availability bias.
Yeah. We're looking at just the data that's available to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, this one feels pretty to me. I mean, it feels pretty straightforward. The one where it's the part where it said, where it said, um, oh, where was the one line it said? The most significant in all of human history. Like that line, I'm like, ooh, did you watch the inauguration? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like the part for me that was like, um, the part for me that like was like a moment was when, I think he said like this, I've never, this has been the most difficult presidency in all of American history. In my head, I was like, dude, it, genuinely, like I want to be clear, like I consider myself largely independent. I don't have strong bias in either way.
Sure.
I think it's absurd to play party politics. That doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah. I'm definitely not
Um,
into that either.
yeah, so I want to be clear that I'm not, I'm not bashing on Trump in this sense. For me, it's like when I was like, man, it's like, you're comparing yourself to Roosevelt, you're comparing yourself to George Washington. When he specifically said the hardest or most difficult presidency in American history, I was like, dude, I was like, there's some presidents who went through some fucking shit. Like even like Lincoln as an example. I'm like, okay, could you imagine being a president during a time where your country is independently deciding to go through a civil war where the citizens in your own country are shooting each other and killing each other? It was the most deadly war in American history in terms of American body count. Like that, you're saying your presidency was more difficult than that one? Like there's just like little bits of that I was a little like that's a big statement you're making there. And I don't know how we measure difficulty, but I don't know if,
In his head.
yeah. So that was one part that when I read that on this thing, I was like, that's literally something that was said literally yesterday. So that was my kind of big thought.
Yeah. So I thought anchoring bias was actually a different one. Um, can you do a search to see if it comes up again? Because I thought that was a different one.
Mm.
Um, Maybe it isn't. I swear I saw it before elsewhere, but I'll just say what it is, that I remember it as. Essentially, anchoring bias is, um, typically whenever you hear a story, like let's say it's two people arguing.
I'm grabbing another apple. I'm listening to you, just so you know.
Okay. Okay. Are you able to respond through your things? You can. Okay, great. So anchoring bias is when, let's say, two people are arguing. More often than not, whoever side of the story you hear first, you're more likely to sympathize with and have this outgroup bias of the other side, whatever side that is. And simply just because you heard one first, you are more anchored to that opinion rather than the opposite. And I guess that falls under the umbrella of availability bias, but I thought that was a whole separate one on this list altogether, but that's anchoring bias.
Got it.
So I guess
Makes
we're
sense.
covering anchoring bias right now. So what do you think of that one?
Of having,
Whoever's like side of a story you hear first is the one you're more likely to sympathize with and think that they're right.
yeah, I mean it's a tough one because like a lot of these are unconscious, right? But that one in
Well,
particular,
subconscious.
yeah, subconscious. Oh, but could you also argue unconscious? Because the
We
sub
gotta we
I
gotta
thought
define words
subconscious,
then.
yeah, I thought subconscious was a noun and like
You want to
unconscious is
Google
more
the
of a verb.
definitions
Yeah.
because we don't want to equivocate.
Define unconscious. Okay. So adjective, not conscious. But the boy was beaten unconscious. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
then
feel
also
like if you're
noun.
asleep, not dreaming. Like if you're
Yeah.
dreaming, that's your subconscious, right? But if
No,
you're okay, go ahead.
unconscious. The part of the mind which is inaccessible to the conscious mind, but with effects, behavior, and emotions. So let me see. So that sounds a lot like subconscious, but let me see what subconscious means.
I feel like if
Oh,
you're
okay.
unconscious, you could access your subconscious, but not always.
So it looks like subconscious. It says of or concerning the part of the mind of which is not fully aware but influences one's actions and feelings. So it's actually interchangeable, subconscious and unconscious. It seems because
I feel
those
like if somebody is
that
dreaming, they are unconscious, but they're using their subconscious. But somebody could be knocked out, not dreaming, and they're just unconscious, not using their subconscious.
yeah, for me it's like it comes in the adverb form where I start to use different. It feels different for me, but that doesn't mean it is. When I if I were to say like if someone were doing something without their knowledge of doing it, I would be more prone to say they're doing this thing unconsciously than I would say they're doing it subconsciously. And I would also be more likely to refer
Okay.
to the part of their mind that is not doing things consciously. I would more likely refer to that part of their mind as their subconscious. So that's interesting. But they seem to be pretty close in terms of definition when I looked it up on Google, at least, which was based off the Oxford Dictionary.
Hell yeah. Yeah, even if we're using unconsciously colloquially, I'm fine with it. It's not that big
Yeah,
of a deal to me.
yeah, I felt fine. Um,
Oh, I was yeah. Your thoughts on anchoring bias? Did you have anything else to
yeah,
say?
it seemed to me it's like it just seems it seems like I'll put it this way. For me, I find like I would consider myself pretty intentional in the sense that like I'm consciously putting forth effort regularly to be deliberate, present, and intentional with my thoughts, actions, words, etc. And even with that level of intention, I find it difficult not to be enrolled in anchoring bias because it's like you hear the first thing and you're like, oh, like your
That
mind.
must be true.
Well, it's like in terms of like even in speaking, there's a concept called open looping where you open up a loop in a concept, and by keeping the loop open, what it does is for the people you're speaking to, their minds become now hungry to close the loop, so much so that they're now more attentive to what you're saying. And so in speaking, it's a well-known trait or a skill to know how to consistently open loops and then close them at the right time so you can get the right information or the information you desire to get into people's minds in between the opening and closing of loops. So it's a powerful, and I would like, I'm sure we're able and we're conscious, whether we're able to control it. But so far in my life, I can recall multiple instances where I've fallen into anchoring bias, even when I've decided that I don't want to. So yeah, I find that one interesting.
I actually find that one interesting, because I can't remember a time in my life where I haven't practiced not doing that. But I think Alan, you know me well enough to know that like I'm the devil's advocate to myself. Like I'll go on one line of thinking, and then I'll always be like, but that could be wrong, and here's why it might be wrong. And like I'll like try to prove myself wrong like every time I'll go back and forth, even in my own head. And so if I heard, yeah, here's an example of me deliberately trying to avoid anchoring bias. A girl broke up with this guy that I knew, and the guy was like, he's trying to get back together with her, and then he told me that she actually secretly told him that she wants to get back together, and I'm like, oh, that's the opposite of what she told me. Let me just like double check. Like I could take your word for it, but like, do you mind if I like just ask her if that's accurate? He's like, yeah, go ask her. And then I'm like, I just sent her a screenshot. Like, he's saying that you want to get back together with him. Is this accurate? She's like, no, he's full of shit. I'm like, okay, well, dude, you're fucking lying. I don't know what to tell you. This is the opposite of what you were proclaiming. And am I supposed to take your word that her word is not true? And she's like, I want a fucking restraining order. I'm like, I think you're fucking lying, bro. I'm sorry. And he was offended by that. I'm like, I don't know how nicely to say that, but like I can't get behind this. But anyways, yeah, I try to challenge that as much as possible. And anyways, that situation sucked, but oh well. Um the latter part of this was the also related is the fallacy of hyperbole.
Hmm.
Oh, well, yeah, I think hyperbole is fine as long as it's like at least understood and implied that it is hyperbole and not meant to be taken literally. I think I think that's fine.
I think, well, I think me, so I like to speak with hyperbole, and it's not, well, how do I put this? I like to speak with a lot of emotion. I like to be passionate. I like to evoke passion in others, evoke meaning and drive in others. And so hyperbole, like, I can appreciate it, but I think hyperbole is a lot like, it's a lot like nuclear energy or nuclear technology. It's like it can be used
I'm so
to,
curious where you go with this. I have
yeah.
no
And no,
idea.
no, it's just it's funny. Like I saw your face, and I'm like, oh, let me pause. But nuclear energy, right, or nuclear technology, can be used to level a city or power a city. And I think hyperbole is really similar. It's like you can use it, and it's very positive and powerful. It creates a lot of emotion and passion. Or you can say statements like, "I'm the greatest president in the history of all presidents," or "I this is the most difficult presidency in the history of all presidents." And it's like, wow. It's like, and to be fair, like let's just pull back on a scientific stance. Like even if we, and not meaning withdrawing science, but I mean like if we somehow could measure the quote unquote difficulty quotient of presidencies, and somehow we were able to in fact measure that Trump's time attempting to be in office, being in office, if we were to in fact be able to measure that it was the most difficult presidency in American history, even if that was possible, I don't know if it would actually be that awesome, that good, or even respectful to American history to claim such a thing. Because it's like, hey, like there's tons of men that came before you. Truthfully, the only reason that he can be where he is because of the hundreds of people who've come before him that have laid the way for him to do it. So it's like, that's the place where like you can even go to example the other. This is now we'll move away from presidential examples, where I think there's a really good example of this in real life, which is with Tony Robbins. You and I reference him quite a bit. Um, Tony Robbins recently had Stanford study his work, Harvard study his work, and they definitively concluded through longitudinal studies with sufficient sample sizes that attending Tony Robbins events is more effective at curing and impacting positively depression, sadness, low state emotions than medications, than traditional therapy, than traditional everything.
That's how
So
powerful placebo is. It's a
yes,
real thing.
but here's the thing is like Tony Robbins has every reason, even backed by the scientific community, by highly reputable schools and institutions. He could literally stand up and say to everyone on the planet, backed by scientific information, that his container is the greatest in the world. He could do it. The data's there, but he never does, and he never will. And
Not necessary.
it's like let the thing speak for itself. And to me, it's like that's where, to me, if I think about, if we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about, what we think is wrong with these, I always think it's important to also say, hey, what's an example of it going right? And what's an example of these things doing very well? Like Tony is probably one of the most passionate and powerful speakers on the planet that anybody could ever witness. And yet, like I would argue he uses hyperbole in all the appropriate ways, but he doesn't
Well,
tip.
if he is the best and he says he's the best, then it's technically not hyperbole because it is literal.
Yeah, but right. But it's like, but even if it were, he wouldn't say it. And so it's like I think hyperbole is one of those things that if it's intelligently used, and the word I would put in here is like ethically used, and ethically meaning not being used to take advantage of people's uh, to take advantage of human beings, using fallacies to harm them and better the person who's speaking. Like that to me is what ethically would be. I believe he kills it. I believe he does it the right way. Whereas there are other examples of people who use hyperbole to take advantage of human psyche so they can get more and they can get less. And so anyway, hyperbole for me, it's one of those that I think it's so powerful. It's important to talk about, and it's important to understand like how is it used in a positive way, and then how can it be used in a negative way.
Yeah, I think it's fine as long as it's either acknowledged or like just not literally acknowledged, but just as long as people know it's hyperbole, I think that's fine. Like if people can tell you're kind of joking or exaggerating, that's fine. You comedians couldn't exist without hyperbole, you know. So
One of my favorite hyperbolic comedians of all time is Brian Regan. He's like one of the funniest dudes. So if you want some really good examples of hyperbole and onomatopoeia, Brian Regan, he's the way to go.
so all right, you ready for the next one?
Yes.